Three management failures nearly every pastor makes. Coming up on the Better Sundays podcast at Reachkeep.com. Welcome to the Better Sundays podcast. Focused, practical, and usable advice for church leaders looking to reach new young families and impact their community. Well, howdy. Mike Holmes here at Reachkeep.com at the Better Sundays podcast. We're just thrilled to have you on board this week as we talk about management failures. And I am the object lesson here. Folks, everything we're talking about, I have failed at. And I want to share with you some things that as we've done some research and we look into pastors and leadership, and they're talking especially about communications now, there are some areas that nearly every pastor fails to put some of these things together in the management side. Now remember, we lead people, but we manage things. Now sometimes those things that we manage are getting the right people on board and scheduling people and some of that. So don't confuse that with the idea of not leading people and just managing things, just like inventory or whatever. But you're going to manage calendars and that affects people. You're going to manage budgets and that affects people. You're going to be managing, your announcements and your priorities, and all those things affect people. So there is kind of a blending here, and we want to kind of talk a little bit about that. If you're first time here, this is the Better Sundays podcast. My name is Mike Holmes. I'm the founding pastor at the Sinclair Baptist Church, and we have a vibrant ministry, a lot of great things going on. And a lot of the reasons we have a lot of great things is because we have made a lot of mistakes. I think one of the things that a church plant gets to do in a way that's, kind of different than maybe established churches is church planters get to kind of stretch out and try some new stuff and do some things because there's not a lot of, historical infrastructure there, and they get to make failures. And so from that, they get to really learn some lessons, and believe me, we have learned plenty. And so I want to talk to you about these areas of management that really, and they're all tied to communication. And this is the idea of we have to give that vision, we have to ask, we got to get people involved and all that. But I want to talk to you about these areas of management that really we sometimes kind of drop the ball on. The very first one is the idea of working with the right people and getting the right people to the table. There's an old management book that was written about 20, 30 years ago by Jim Collins, and he used the phrase, getting the right people on the bus before you start driving the bus and getting it going. And, coming from a bus ministry, that kind of had a resonance with me. The idea of let's make sure we get the right people. Now, on the bus means, at least in the context that I'm talking about, is building a vibrant, flourishing church in your community that is reaching new young families and making an impact on your community. That's what we want to do. We want to see churches that are flourishing, that are growing, that are new people are coming, and great things are happening, and God is really at work there. And all of that is this idea of getting the right people there so you can make that happen. Now, many times when we are trying to put the right people on the bus, we find that there are sometimes people already on the bus that are kind of the wrong people. And believe me, there's a delicate balancing act there of putting some of that together. But if you are going to reach a church or reach a community and impact a community, you've got to you've got to build a system of people that are around you, that are helping you to do things and getting them going there. Now, I've got some notes here that I want to kind of go through and make sure that when we talk about getting the right people on there, that we're not talking about a what we would normally refer to as a governance board, like a deacon board or an elder board, or some people that maybe make decisions. In fact, in the absence of a pastor, many times a board is kind of what holds the church together, that type of thing. And when a new pastor comes in, they're still kind of there and they're still kind of doing some things. And many times these are great boards. They're wise guys. They are wise men that are helping you make decisions. And when you have large personnel issues and big budget issues and giant, financial goals and dreams, you definitely want to have the multitude of counselors. Okay, that is commonly referred to as a governance board. Many churches meet with that governance board, once every month, every couple of weeks, or whatever. And they talk about those things. We're not talking about that. Now, those people might be involved in your idea of building this church, but sometimes those people are their job is to slow things down. Their job is to kind of think it through all that, make things kind of, slow things down. Your job as a leader is to move things forward. And there's got to be an obvious balance here. But what we're talking about is not a board that is made up of the governing people, nor is it a board that is made up of the most senior people. Many times churches have the decision makers, and the people that come to the meetings are not the newer, the fresher people. There are people who've been around a long time, because it's the protection idea here. Now, when we're talking about getting the bus rolling and reaching new people and doing some things in a programmatic sense, we're not talking about being safe. We're talking about being effective and moving out there. Now, and again, I don't want you to do anything crazy, okay, and unsafe. I guess that's not what I'm meaning. But it's like, let me give you the example. This is a good one. Say you really want to have a dynamic Christmas program. I've used this illustration before. You want to have a dynamic Christmas program. You want to reach some of those people in your community in a brand new way, okay? If you have your governor's board or your most senior people come, a lot of the questions you're going to have is like, well, we did it this way, back in '02, and back in the 80s, we did it this way. You're going to get a lot of things. What you want is to get the right people there, and on that you might need some parents on board, because they would know kind of what the heartbeat of, hey, what we want to do with the kids. You might have some of the newer teachers on board that have some newer and innovative ideas for like decoration. You might get tech people on board. You might get teenagers on board and say, hey, we could do this skit and we could have some fun and we could do this, and you kind of think things through. But you get people together, and the best way to do that is to have like what we call a brainstorming session, and invite people to come to that, and you invite those, and you use your communication skill, build a little vision, invite those people to come, and you say, hey, I'd like you to come to this meeting, like you to come to this meeting, like you come to this meeting. If you're with your governance boards, you can kind of say, hey, if you guys like to come, we're going to do some brainstorming on a Christmas program, and most of them probably won't come because they know everything about Christmas programs because they've done them for 30 years or whatever. So now you get the right people there, and you start to do that. Most pastors fail to put a team together that is going to be what I often call your soulmates, people that are like, yes, let's build this church. Let's reach this community. Let's make an impact at that high school. Let's touch that middle school. Let's get into that elementary school. All of those kind of things. Those are usually newer people that have that, and most pastors fail to put together a team. And again, my suggestion here is first start out with a very simple project, like you want to do a summer outreach, and invite some people to get them involved, get them into a brainstorming session, use their ideas, bounce those ideas around. Of course, you can double check all these ideas and stuff with budget and calendar, and you'll probably have to run through this, some of this through governance anyway. But what I'm saying is we fail to build these cohesive little teams that are going to be, in the military, where they call them striker teams or whatever. It's like they can be airdropped into an area and go do some tremendous work and get things done in short order because there's not a lot of encumbrances around them. And most pastors fail to do that. So in your management, one of the things that you have to do is put together a team that will make the difference and get things done. Every one of these little, or every one of these businesses that are out there that have been successful, especially in the high-tech area, they have taken some groups of people and said, we're going to stick you over here in a garage somewhere, and we want you to come up with a solution. And from that, they've sprouted some tremendous solutions, that have been able to change the tech world. So I guess I'm just using that as an illustration. Don't forget to put, don't fail to put a team together. Don't fail to put a group together that is sort of like your little striker team, and it's like, we're going to run this program, we're going to run this thing, we're going to get this thing going. The second thing where pastors fail is when they get teams together, and this can even be in the governance teams that are already there, or maybe some established directors that you have there. But it is a failure to have what we would call robust discussion. In other words, ideas that sometimes butt heads against each other and fight against each other. Not and believe me, tension is not a bad thing. That's what makes your thumb work. Okay, that's what makes a lot of things work is tension. All right, tension is not a thing. Conflict and argument and selfishness and pride, that's all bad. Okay, but to have people be fighting for their man, we want announcements. We want that elementary program be announced on Sunday morning. The pastor's like, well, I don't have enough time to make all those announcements. But Pastor, you've got to tell them about this program because we're going to be reaching the moms and dads and so there's that kind of attention. We fail to have robust discussion because everybody kind of sits back and thinks, well, blessed are the peacemakers, and we're not going to argue. We're not going to, have any kind of tension. There needs to be tension. There needs to be robust discussion. If you are the person that has the ideas and you want to build the programs, you're going to have tension with the budget guy. Okay, the budget guy is going to say, we don't have money for those banners. We don't have money for all that promotional stuff you want to do. And let me say something. The budget guy can't always win. And you can't always win. There needs to be tension. But once everything has been, everybody's been open and discussed it and got everything out, then usually there's a final decision and everybody buys in. And you just say, this wasn't my idea. I didn't really think of this way. But you know what? Let's do it. Let's go that way. And you buy into that discussion and you go into that. Tension is okay. All right. Figure out, talk these things till you get it figured out. And make sure that you as the leader, if you're the senior leader, that you are okay with tension. That you approve of that tension. And you might even just stop and just say, hey, this is a good discussion here. Let's keep this going. I like this. This has to happen. We are responsible to our congregation to have the best ideas. And if we all just sit like this and don't discuss things, okay, we will not have the best ideas out there. And again, that is a failure for the pastor. Pastor, do not fail to have robust discussion. And again, there has to be trust in there, and there has to be the relationships are strong so that you know that you can argue for your calendar thing, and you can argue for this person can argue for their budget thing or their middle school program or their summer stuff. All these people can fight for that, and if they don't get their thing, they don't go pouting and go out into the hallway and start bad mouthing. That's not right either. Okay, you need to have a team that is cohesive and can have that robust discussion. So number one here is make sure you get the right people, and that those then right people are able to have really good, open, and often tension-filled discussions. The third thing here is that I found, and took me a while to get this figured out how to do this, is a failure to take these teams then that we have built. Okay, so you have a greeting team, and you have a nursery team, and you have a tech team, and you've got some people that are in charge of the facility. A failure to manage, a management failure is failing to get those people to have their own meetings, to have their own little things going, and to release them to do that. I remember I was in a meeting when I first started our church, and I was working on really, trying to kind of let people run with things and make decisions. And I was in this meeting, everything was kind of going, and I'm throwing out ideas, and what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And a very well-meaning staff person said, well, Pastor, we don't make those kind of decisions. You make those decisions, and it was kind of like they threw it all back, and I felt sorry for myself for a minute. I was like, no, wait a minute here. I don't want to make these decisions. I want you to make them. And I realized that there's got to be some parameters. So here's how it works. Okay. There's no discussion of doctrine. You don't need to decide, well, we're going to change this doctrine or that doctrine. You don't need to discuss that. At our church, there's no discussion of core values. We have, 4 core values that are already preset, and they're done, and we built our church on those, and they are there. But it is the tactics to make those values happen is where the discussion starts to happen. And for the nursery people, it's going to be a totally different discussion than for the tech people. For all of our people, the idea is to create an amazing local church experience, an amazing Sunday. And the nursery people need to make it amazing Sunday. The tech people need to make it an amazing Sunday. The facilities and custodial people need to make it an amazing Sunday. But they will not do that if they just meet with you like once every 6 months or a year to get their direction. They need to have their own fire set. And pastors, do not fail to set the fire in your teams. Get your teams on fire. Now, the way that you do this is that you have to build some vision in them that they are, okay, so let's say tech, all right, and which might include your music and special music, and if you have, guitars or whatever you have at your particular church, piano, we have a lot of push button music at our church. You push the button and it plays. Okay, a lot easier. But you've got some people, okay? Those people need to have their own meeting and talk about what excellence means. We start on time. We push the button at the right time. We practice ahead of time. We do mic checks ahead of time. All that would be totally different than the nursery people who would be talking about having conversations with young moms and making sure that, the kids are not allergic to different things and that there's plenty of supplies, diapers and wipes and all that kind of stuff. Totally different thing. But you need, and do not fail to do this, to build a team and then set them over here and say, you guys work on the tactics. You guys work on the details. You guys figure this out and be the best that you can be. And here's the parameters. We got the core values on this side and the doctrine on that side. But inside of that, you have the freedom to do all your own management, make all those things happen, and set them up with their own meetings. Now, they can tell you when and where those meetings are, and in some cases, the pastor is like the ex officio member of every committee, that type of thing. You don't necessarily have to be to it. In fact, they won't step up until you step away, and we've talked about that several times. One of the ways to get people to lead is to let them lead and to let them run with things. So you step away, you let them do that, check in on them as much as you need to. Different groups will be different, but let them do that and let them build that fire and let that fire rage. It's the winter where I am right now, and every single day, and sometimes multiple times a day, I build a fire. Okay, we have a wood burner. It's what keeps our house warm, and I go down there and throw a couple logs in, throw a little paper in there, and throw some little kindling on top, another little smaller log on top, and get the little clicker thing, and I click it, and it starts. And every time, I'm just amazed. It just starts to grow and grow, and pretty soon it starts to kind of rumble and make that noise in there. It's a really cool thing when a fire gets going. And fires they can just go and go and go. And you could build a fire on Monday, and I guess if you kept throwing the logs in it, you can. And we've had that at different times of the year when it's been serious cold for a long time, that the fire just went for days on end. We just kept on doing it. You're familiar with forest fires, that's start here. We've had one not too long ago that it burned like 35 miles before it stopped, okay? It just kind of kept on going and going. And that fire was set by a single spark. And what I'm not telling you to burn the forest down. I'm telling you to set a spark. And to get the spark going, and get the spark going on the people. Here, let's go through it again. Get the right people on the bus. Make sure that you've got that. Get them involved in robust discussion, and have robust discussion at all levels of your meeting. Let people know that they trust each other, and we can talk about this. Making management decisions, and here's what we don't argue doctrine and some of that kind of stuff, but we're going to talk about tactics and little strategies of how we're going to do these things. Yes, there's different ways to do that. Let's talk all that through. And then the third thing, do not fail to get that ongoing fire building, those team meetings. Don't fail to get that going. Now, I want to leave all that with you here. Don't forget, next week we're going to be covering more on communication and church leadership, and we're really going to cover into team meetings and how to get team meetings kind of a little bit more up and running, because this is an area that I didn't know much about, and how to do all that. So Join me next week. Make sure you click on, in fact, if you're listening to this later, there's probably already a link to that video here, but please click on the link and you can go back and listen to the one last week, what we did. All sorts of people, clicked on effective leadership stuff that we've been doing. So thank you so much. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure if this is good and you liked it and this is helpful, one of the things that this helps get this around the world is hit that subscribe button, because that gives us more mojo with Google and YouTube and all that kind of stuff. Helps get things around the world. So thank you so much. Hey, this is Mike, Reachkeep. Don't forget, be a great leader, okay? Get the right people on the bus. Get some awesome discussion and good discussion going. People will leave your meetings. They won't be bored with your meetings. They'll go, man, we got some things done there. And then make sure, most of all, that you set the fire in those teams and let them run. Let them run and let them run. Anyway, God bless you. I'm going to sign out. We will see you next week. Join us again. Make sure you click one of these other videos. Keep on watching, and we will see you next time here on the Better Sundays podcast.